Well, as promised, we're going to go on with some of the things that we talked about earlier. The main thing being, trends in communication, what's been going on. And so I did say we're going to talk about the 3 top trends in communication. I'm going to do this in reverse order. Again, it might come as a surprise to you. The first one is, number 3, social media. Now you're probably thinking, what? How could that be number 3 and the hottest trend? Well, recently, Manta Research did a survey of businesses, particularly small businesses, who said they're not getting the bang for their buck that they had hoped with social media in the last several years. And though social media is obviously a powerful tool and it's not going away, and as you can see, there's a new social media app every day. There's always something trending that's new and different and exciting, but each one of them has its own purpose, yes? But for some reason, businesses aren't feeling it. And I think you're going to see when you tie some of these things together that storytelling plays into it, imagery plays into it, how you're using it. If you're just on social media because everybody else is, because someone told you should, I have to keep up with the Joneses, so you create an account, but then you let the account sit dormant, then it's doing no good, yes? How many of you have done that? I mean, before this, it was websites. We created websites, thought, yeah, everybody needs a website. One of my first communications job was the communications director for a school district, and that school district didn't have a website. And one of the first things they told me when I got there was, now that you're here, you've got to create a website. What? And this, I won't tell you what year it was because it'll date me, but so I learned how to do front page, put up a website, and everybody was happy. And very quickly I learned that sitting there isn't doing any good at all. It's even a website, even before social media, even before blogging, keeping a website fresh was important. That's what a lot of businesses are not doing well. What do you think number 2 might be? No guesses. Still might surprise you. Mobile. Why mobile? There was a time when very few people had smartphones, and you can probably remember when the iPhone came out, how many people were resisting it. Oh, I'll stick with my flip phone. I'm fine with my flip. That's too high tech for me. And I loved it. I jumped on it right away. And I remember people saying, well, I don't need a phone to do all that. And my answer was always, don't think of it as a phone. It's not just a phone. What are cell phones now? They're your phone, they're your GPS, they're your calendar, they're your social network, and gosh, they're your camera. Not just your still camera, but they're your video camera. I mean, phone, that's not a phone. But what's also made this popular is because now businesses are realizing and organizations are realizing that my website is not good enough just to be a website. It has to be adaptable to every device, yes? Because now, you can walk around now, you see it, senior citizens with iPads and people who resist it before. Folks who said, I'm never going to do it. I remember my twin brother was a state cop when cell phones now I'm really dating myself, first became popular. And he had, do you remember this? He had a bag phone. Who knows what a bag phone is? Look at all the young people looking at me like, what? Yes, your car phone came in a bag. A big canvas bag, and it was huge, like this big. And it sat there, and you were in the day if you had a cell phone and you were driving around like this with your, that was my brother. And I was, believe it or not, the one who said, I don't want people to be able to get a hold of me when I'm not home. If they can't I'm not interested in that. Never saw myself. But years later, I'm always ready for the next biggest thing. And what's exciting about that now is that if you go back in time and see when all these things start to evolve, you saw web designers. How many people are graphics people here? Web designers, all that. When websites got popular, they were very busy people. Then they became so user-friendly that they weren't busy people. Well, guess what? Now they're busier than they have been since 1997. Why? Because now I need my website to conform to all of these devices, and I'm not, but guess what? That's even going to get easier probably eventually. So if number 3, and the biggest trend in communication is social media, and number 2 is mobile, what could possibly be number 1? Vines.
They are big.
Personally.
Word of mouth.
Personally means
Trends in communication. I love that you don't know the answer.
storytelling.
But I'm still waiting on that. But any idea? Video. Now, and that gets Andrea excited because we keep talking about video and images, and forget the words, kill the words, talk about tell the story with an image, tell the story with as few words as possible, because just as we talked about in the beginning, right? How does your brain work? It works in pictures, not in words, not in letters, right? So videos have become so popular that they've created new terms like explainer video. Anybody know what an explainer video is? Yes? An explainer video is a video, it's about a minute long, 2 minutes tops, that basically tells the story of a company. And if you look at an explainer video, it's not the old-fashioned way companies used to advertise. They would advertise and they would say, we do this and you'll be this if you eat this, and you'll be this if you take that, and you'll be all good. Now they're telling more of a story. And some of them are pretty funny. I'm not going to show you these, but the other powerful thing about the internet now is, with video, is YouTube obviously makes it easy for anyone to create a video, yes? But the other thing is it's putting companies out of business in some ways. My Suzuki Kozashi, which is a car that most people never heard of, needed a new headlight. So because I've always changed my own headlights, I go to change the headlight and I couldn't get to it. It was impossible. So I go get my oil change, said, wait, can you change the headlight? He said, sure, $120. I said, what? To change the headlight? Forget it, I'm gonna change it myself. So I go home and I just knew it. I just knew if I did this, I would find it. I Googled on YouTube, Suzuki Kozashi headlight change. And sure enough, somebody was there showing you step by step. You had to take the whole front end of the car off, believe it or not. I've never had a car where I had to take the whole bumper off to change the headlight. But you know, step-by-step instructions, did it myself, and it was, I was right with the world. If you haven't been to our YouTube channel, or if you haven't had a chance to see any of our fabulous videos and outreach, make sure you do that. And if you haven't created a channel of your own, it's not hard to do. In fact, YouTube has made it easier to create a really nice looking display of your videos. So I encourage you to do that. Are you still with me? The Big Five, I told you earlier, it was actually the National Press Club had their annual luncheon, and they invited all the who's who and then asked these 60 great minds of PR people under 30 what the biggest things were. They had 10 recurring themes. I'm going to share with you the first 5. These are not in any particular order, but guess what? One of them was. Yes, but storytelling. Now, I mean, I don't want to sit up here and repeat what Mary Miller just did such a wonderful job sharing with us just now. But need we say more about the need to tell a story? Even if you're tempted to put that boilerplate in the front of your press release, don't do it. I mean, tell the story. Some people smile at me because they know what I'm talking about. It sparks emotions. It takes facts and turns it into something real. People don't want to hear facts. They want to hear something they can relate to. So storytelling makes sense. The next one is to take advantage of your expert status. What does that mean? Taking advantage of your expert status, I want to show you this chart. It's where credibility has gone in the last several years with CEOs and companies as far as trust and credibility. And one of the things people said in this survey was they can trust an organization, and they'll say, yes, I trust the organization, but ask them if they trust the CEO or the person in charge of the organization, and they will say, no. And what's interesting about this chart is you'll find that in 2011, guess who's at the top of the most trusted? The academic expert. What a nice place to be, right? Since you work at Virginia Tech. But look, see the big yellow arrow there? 43% said they would trust a person like themselves, right? By 2012, that number jumped to 65%, just a year later. And the academic expert is still up there, right? And in 2012, 13, academic expert is still up there. A person like yourself has now jumped to 65%. It's down a little bit to 61, but what's my point? I trust people who are like me, right? So how does that play into telling stories? Let me go back to that for a second. Sometimes if I'm telling a story to someone who cannot relate to me because I know that they can't relate to me, then I kind of, like, as Mary said, I can clam up and not want to. But if I'm sharing a story with someone like me, I mean, I get passionate, I get excited. We have to try to see how we can pull that into our work every day. I mean, if we can be passionate about the work that we do and the stories that we tell, what a difference they're going to make in the number of people who pay attention to us, not just in our press releases, but in our social interactions, even in our brochures. Next one is visual. Obviously, we just talked about video, we talked about social media, and we talked about the importance of understanding that everything we think starts in photos, doesn't start in words. So think about that even as you write. What kind of images am I conjuring up with the words that I choose? Visual communication, obviously, is extremely important. And one of the nice things about visual communications, again, I'm going to repeat this again, is that you now have the power to do it. You don't even have to be an expert to do it, to create a video. Or even if you're not an expert, if you conceptualize it, ask an expert. It's that important to understand the power of visual communication. And here, let me address your fan, Leah. The other one is understanding your super fans. This is understanding your audience. But what's a super fan? Not the girl with the tattoo on her cheek that makes that great face there. I love it. But who better to tell your story than somebody who's a fan of what you do? Because no one wants to hear from you how great you are. No one wants to hear from you about how great your product is, or your service, or your whatever you're plugging on your press release or your brochure, or whatever. No one wants to hear, but if they hear it from your super fans, and this ties into social media again, yes, right? Because now people have the power to create content on your behalf. They have the power to create video on your behalf. They use your products or use your, and I'm speaking to you like you're product people, but you know what I mean. Everybody has a product in some fashion, right? But you know, whatever it is you're trying to promote, you have an opportunity to engage fans now because that's the power of social media, yes? So in answer to your question, Leah, you know, one of the ways to do that is to try to understand how they respond to your work and respond to their response. Do you know what I mean? If they're trending something on Twitter that you didn't expect, like, wow, I didn't expect that reaction. I'm sure we've all done that. We've put something on Twitter and I didn't expect that reaction. I didn't expect it to go viral. Then capitalize on it, you know, repeat it. Okay, maybe the picture of the puppy had nothing to do with the inn at Virginia Tech, but everybody followed it and became a big story. So now how can I tie it in to my work at the end, or to an event, or an opportunity? Do you see what I mean there? So it goes without saying that that's what social media has done. The other one, this is one you may not want to hear about, but this was one of the other top ones that the participants brought up, and that was research and measurement. Now, I know a lot of us got into PR, I know I did, or marketing, because we hate numbers. We don't want to deal with math. That's why I majored in communication, not because I wanted to be a communicator, but because I didn't want to be in math or science. I just didn't know what else to do. Oh, it's communications. So here I am. But, you know, one of the things that's really important to think about now isn't so much the facts and figures, but it's the way people respond to the facts and figures. So if you've done research on something and you've discovered a 70% jump in participation at an event compared to the year before, then I'm not so concerned about the number. I'm concerned about, if I promote that, what kind of response am I going to get? Now, I'm a communicator, not a mathematician or statistician, so I want to capitalize on the power of public perception? How are they perceiving those numbers? And how are they responding to those numbers, and how can I write about it, or share about it, or brag about it, or get my super fans to brag about it? Does that make sense? So what I'm saying is don't leave that out of the picture. Now, even though technology is going to keep on coming, it's going to keep on growing, and I have to go back to those days when my brother had the bag phone, and I said I was never going to have one, and now not only am I using iPhones and iPads, but even people who swore they would never do it are using it. My wife was one of those people, by the way. She had a flip phone for the longest time. She just wanted to hold out because she just knew that that wasn't going to. What happened when she got an iPhone? Loved it. Now she has an iPhone and an iPad. And despite the fact that it's still coming fast, there is one thing that's always going to be better. Always going to be better. What is it? Somebody said it earlier. Did I hear you say it again? Word of mouth. The human touch is never going to go away. You know, if I tell you a story and I whisper it in your ear and you start whispering it down the lane, you know, that's never going to go away because you feel the emotion, you feel the passion, you feel the authenticity. It's real, right? We are a sharing creature. And because of that, word of mouth, when you can take social media and multiply it now by the thousands, by the millions, how much more powerful is word of mouth? It's still word of mouth because I'm not hearing it from some edited newspaper or some edited news story. I'm hearing it on social media from somebody who was there, somebody who participated, somebody who was there at this moment even, yes? So word of mouth is never going to go away. It's still going to be a powerful, powerful tool. None of this takes away our need to know our audience and know that we don't want to give information for the sake of giving information. We want to give information that our audience wants, not information that we think our audience needs. Because if we want to engage our audience and get them to that level of super fan that's now sharing our information on our behalf, bragging about us on our behalf, then I don't want to share information about myself. I want to get my super fans to do it. So I want to know my audience. And so sometimes, you know, we laugh at TMI, but sometimes we do tend to do that as communicators, don't we? We give way too much information. How many times I read stuff that's so dry, I'm like, I know you feel like that's really important to you, or your boss says, I gotta put that in there, but I'm gonna tell you something you don't wanna hear. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. What they want is what's in it for them. That old radio station, WIF, what do you call that? What's WIFM, or what's in it for me? That's what people want. So think about that when you're sharing information, when you're writing a brochure, when you're writing a press release, when you're even just writing a letter, you know? But here's the other very important point. It's always to do what? To keep it simple. You know, Einstein said if you can't explain it simply, then you don't know it yourself, basically. So that's an important point. But here's something that'll blow you away about the power of information now. And even though the media is still powerful in their own right, and they always will be, we now have more power than, you know, 50 years ago, media journalists would have never thought, wouldn't have ever been able to imagine. Wouldn't have been possible. But here's the interesting thing. Every 60 seconds, 695,000 status updates are posted. Every 60 seconds. Every 60 seconds, 13,000 iPhone apps are downloaded. Every 60 seconds, 600 new videos are posted to YouTube, equating to 72 hours of footage a day. Isn't that crazy? 98,000 tweets every minute. And the list goes on. You can, I mean, if anyone wants to see that chart, I'll share it with you. It's a very fascinating chart. 168 million emails a minute, 60 seconds. So how do you cut through all that clutter to get your message heard? Obviously, with 168 million emails every 60 seconds, you know, is email as effective as it used to be? Probably not. But is Facebook effective if your audience isn't there? That's something you have to know. Is Twitter effective if your audience isn't using Twitter? Goes back to what cutting the clutter means: knowing your audience, knowing what your super fans are going to respond to, and knowing what kind of information they really want, not what they need. So let's get rid of that. This may sound like it's impossible, right? I say it's not. It's a mission that is possible. You got to forgive my old-time puns. So I'm going to tell you the secret. You ready? It's important. The secret to success is you show and tell. You show and tell. It's not enough just to show. You got to tell. What does that mean? What do I mean by show? We talked about the top 3 things in trending media, right? What are they? Social media, mobile, and video. That's how we show. What are 3 important points about telling? And the first is knowing your audience. Second is leveraging your expertise. And the third, most important, is to tell the story. And that's it. Do you have any questions? No? I am done. So, there we go. But since we already took